On August 28, 1963, there was a March for Jobs and Freedom that took place in Washington, D.C. There were about 250,000 people who attended the march, and it was the largest demonstration ever seen in the nation's capital. It also was the first one to be broadcast on the television. There were some famous people there, such as Philip Rudolph, Whitney Young Jr., the Big Six civil speakers, right? James Farmer, Floyd McKissick, Walter Reuther, Josephine Baker, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King. The march was organized by a group of civil rights, labor, and religious organizations.
It was the year of the racial unrest and civil rights demonstration. Nationwide outrage was sparked by media coverage of police actions in Birmingham, Alabama, where attack dogs and fire hoses were turned against protesters, many of whom were in their early teens or younger. Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested and jailed during these protests, writing his famous letter from Birmingham City Jail, which advocates civil disobedience against unjust laws. Dozens of additional demonstrations took place across the country from California to New York, culminating in the March on Washington. President Kennedy backed a Civil Rights Act which was stalled in Congress by the summer.
There was nobody that ever could imagine how many people that would show up for the demonstrations in Washington, D.C.
People from all over the country where people had been harassed and threatened, but on August 28, 1963, around 250,000 people, about a quarter of whom were white, marched from the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial. There were lots of police, but that turned out to be unnecessary since the march was very peaceful. The march was covered by media with live intentional television coverage.
The whole event included musical performances by Marian Anderson, Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Peter Paul and Mary, and Josh White. Charlton Heston, representing a contingent of artists including Harry Belafonte, Marlon Brando, Diahann Carroll, Ossie Davis, Sammy Davis Jr., Paul Newman, and Sidney Poitier, read a speech by James Baldwin. The speakers included all of the Big Six civil rights leaders, Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish religious leaders, and labor leader Walter Reuther. The one female speaker was Josephine Baker, who included several Negro women fighters for freedom, including Rosa Parks.